A rainy good morning to all. I take the absolute pleasure to welcome you all to yet another episode of the Sunday special 60 Minutes with Psychiatry Teachers. And this is a combined effort of IPS teachers of Psychiatry Forum, IPS UG Education Subcommittee, and the PG Education Subcommittee. This unique initiative is supported by the Minds Trust, and in the past several months has become a well-known and recognized pan-India platform for various stakeholders involved in training and teaching of psychiatry to share their experiences and further improve the quality of medical education in this country. This episode is even more special as it is the first of a new series wherein you get to meet and interact with the Must Enrich research grantees and their mentors as well. What more can anyone ask interested in this? ITOP's Must Enrich Research Grant for Psychiatry Teachers is an initiative of Minds United for Health Sciences and Humanity Trust based in Mysore and Indian Teachers of Psychiatry known as ITOP. This is funded by the Infosys Foundation. What is the need for this, one may ask? As of today, would you believe that there are more than 1 lakh MBBS students in India? Many experts worry that the current medical education system may be compromising on quality while chasing the quantity. The responsibility to produce quality doctors has never been greater. Despite these startling numbers, there is scarce Indian data on teaching and learning methods. While as clinicians and researchers, we often are worried about producing local research for our patients. But how often do we actually wonder the needs and wants of Indian medical students, which are also different and very unique? One of the key reasons these studies are not taken up is because they are not incentivized. Administrators, policymakers need to take up this responsibility to help create a database for our relevant settings. Original research to Must Enrich research grants aims to add evidence to Indian data on teaching and learning methods, especially for education in psychiatry in India. With this, I take pleasure to introduce our resource persons for today. A Must Enrich research grantee, Dr. Nimmy Chandran, is currently assistant professor at the Government Medical College, Palakkad. Dr. Nimmy has done her MBBS from GMC Ernakulam, subsequently MD in Psychiatry at AIIMS Delhi, and worked at GMC Thrissur as a senior resident and currently is in Palakkad. Her interests include teaching undergraduates and research in severe mental disorders. She has several original research, review papers, and chapters to her credit. And her mentor, Dr. Vikas Menon, professor at JIPMER, Pondicherry. Sir had done his MBBS at JIPMER and subsequently his MD, senior residency, and has grown to be a well-known teacher and psychiatrist and is continuing to serve at JIPMER. One of the standing examples in a world wherein people change their places, positions very frequently, a standing example of what brilliant work can be done in staying at one place for quite long and with the same values and principles. Sir is known to be very passionate about teaching and research. He is associated with the National Teachers Training Center, which conducts courses biannually. So we launch with a series with the first study, Effect of Online Customized Psychiatry Teaching on the Perceptions about Psychiatry among Undergraduate Medical Students, a randomized controlled study. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ravi. Is this visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. Good morning, all. First of all, I would like to thank you, the organizers, for giving me this opportunity for presenting my study and sharing my experience of Enrich Research Grant Program. So, my name is Dr. Nimmy Chandran. I'm working as an assistant professor in Department of Psychiatry, Government Medical College, Palakkad. So my journey started when I first saw the flyer of ITOP steps in Kerala Psychiatrist group. Then so I thought of applying to it, and I was very lucky enough to get selection for this program. So that first I will move to my study. So the title of the study was The Effect of Online Customer Psychiatry Teaching on the Perceptions about Psychiatry for the Undergraduate Medical Students, a randomized controlled study. My mentor was Dr. Vikas Menon. And psychiatry as a medical specialty is not usually very attractive to students. The reasons could be the chronic course of illness, stigma associated with the illness, and the perceived lack of clear pathophysiological basis. So this negative attitude towards psychiatry is not only present among the public, but also among medical students and the faculty members. A systematic review of 32 studies showed that psychiatry as a career choice is not very attractive to medical students. And a multi-site survey of teaching medical faculty members from 15 academic teaching centers across UK, Europe, and Asia showed that 90% of the respondents considered psychiatrists are not good role models for medical students. And among the faculty members, 84% thought that psychiatric patients are not suitable to be treated outside specialized facilities. And among the faculty members, 73% of them thought that psychiatric patients are very emotionally draining. And so there is a need for innovative teaching methods for improving the knowledge and perception towards psychiatry among the medical students. So good knowledge about psychiatry subjects for undergraduate students will help in reducing the stigma towards psychiatric illness and also improve the students' attitude towards psychiatry and help to generate interest in the branch. It will also help in early diagnosis and treatment of psychiatric disorders and also reduce the treatment gap in psychiatry. So we aim to assess the effect of online customer psychiatry teaching on the perceptions about psychiatry among undergraduate medical students. So study design was randomized controlled trial. Study setting was Government Medical College, Palakkad. Study population was second-year medical students of Government Medical College, Palakkad. Sample size was 18 students in the intervention arm and 18 students in the control group arm. And purposive sampling was done. So inclusion criteria was second-year medical students of Government Medical College, Palakkad, and students who are undergoing psychiatry clinical posting and or whose age are more than 18 years. There was no exclusion criteria other than not willing to participate in the study. So sample size was 18 students in the intervention arm and 18 students in the control group arm. Minimum sample size required as per the previous study was 16. And we did a purposive sampling. The participants were block randomized either in the intervention group or in the control group using a computer generated random number scheme. And the intervention included 3 hours and 30 minutes of online customer psychiatry teaching for second-year medical students. This was in addition to their usual teaching of 30 hours of clinical posting. And the classes were conducted after regular clinical posting hours. And because of the ongoing pandemic situation during that time, the classes were conducted on Zoom platform and detailed teaching module is attached in this. So first, before the start, students had to fill that study questionnaire, and we have started the first session with their students' interest and their choice of subject. And following that, we have discussed a case scenario that was taken from DSM-5 clinical cases. And students have given the opportunity to discuss within the group. And after that, they gave inputs regarding the possible differential diagnosis. And following that, we have discussed the clinical features, diagnosis, and management plan of that case scenario. And the second session, we have included other differential diagnosis of this same case scenario. Because we have taken the case scenario of panic disorder and we have discussed all the other anxiety disorders, somatoform disorders, and the next. And then we have asked the students to prepare for the next session by watching a particular movie. And in the third session, we have discussed topics based on the movie. So we have discussed schizophrenia with the help of movie, and with the help of movie scenes, we have discussed the hallucinations and delusions. And apart from that, we have discussed all other disorders with the with characters, with movies, characters having psychiatric disorders. So most of the discussions were based on our regional Malayalam language movies. There were movies depicting dementia, movies depicting autism spectrum disorders, delusional disorder, and alcohol dependence. And then finally, we have discussed all the doubts of students regarding their career options and their myths in their there were actually prevailing so many myths about psychiatric illness and the psychiatric treatment modalities. So we gave them time to clear all the myths and all their doubts about psychiatric illnesses, treatment modalities, and advances, and what are the career options in psychiatry. And finally, we had a movie quiz of psychiatric disorders. And we also, because the students were interested in that, we also discussed their newer movies and the personality traits and the personality disorders also, because students were interested in discussing that. So we discussed all that also. So finally, they have to fill that study questionnaire. So that was our teaching module. And so the case scenario was taken from DSM-5 clinical cases. The survey questionnaire was taken from Image of Psychiatry questionnaire. And that was a 23-item scale with the 2 unidimensional subscales, like Image of Psychiatry, 16 items were there, and Efficacy of Psychiatry, 8 items were there. The items assess perception of psychiatry as a discipline, perception of psychiatric treatment, perception of psychiatrist as a role model, perception of psychiatry as a career, and perception of psychiatric patients, and perception of psychiatric training. So this was the questionnaire, and we have removed one question because that was not relevant to the students. It was more relevant to the faculty members. So we have removed one item. So this was a flow diagram. We have assessed for eligibility, and 36 students were randomized into the intervention group and the control group. And then they received customer psychiatry teaching along with their usual curriculum. And the control group received the usual curriculum teaching, and then they have to fill the post-intervention questionnaire. And finally, we have analyzed the data. So this was a demographic and clinical features of intervention and the control group arm. There was no significant difference in the baseline. And so the data from total of 32 students were analyzed, and then comparison of subscale scores between the groups did not show significant difference either at the baseline or at the study point. And this suggested that the intervention did not significantly improve so perception about psychiatry in the intervention group. The short customized student-centered entirely online psychiatry teaching module did not improve the perception about psychiatry compared to the regular curriculum teaching. However, the intervention may hold some promise given that the intervention group, but not in the control group, demonstrated significant within group improvement. The limitation was this was a single-centered study, so no guarantee that the results will generalize to the other settings, and the future studies should improve by using larger samples of diverse settings and longitudinal design to assess the durability of the intervention effect. So this was published in Kerala Journal of Psychiatry on April 2022. So about my learning experience. And my mentor was Dr. Vikas Menon. He thoroughly guided me to write the protocol and every stage of my work. In writing the protocol, in making that a teaching module, and finally writing the research papers. So so it was he used to reply very fast, and so we could complete that in a time-bound manner. And like I used to take, he used to send me clarifications in needed clarifications in these points, and then I will take at least 1 week to prepare everything, and I will send him back. But within 1 day, I'll get that reply. So he guided me in every stages of my work, and it gave me much confidence in writing research papers, in writing protocols, and conducting the study also. So there was, and apart from that, there was rich academic discussions and review meeting with the ITOP faculty members. And so all the eminent, I could interact with all the eminent psychiatry teachers, Mohan Isaac sir, and Dr. Hainal Shah, everybody, Dr. Vinay, and Dr. Kiran, and Dr. Kishore, and everybody gave their inputs. And I could also attend the review meetings of other must Enrich awardees. So I used to get their inputs also. Okay, so that was a very good experience. And this protocol went through various steps of modifications and fine-tuned, and finally conducted the study from July to August. I wrote the research paper and submitted in Kerala Journal of Psychiatry on 1st January 2022 and published in April 2022. So, and apart from that, I could moderate one session of Sunday special 60-minute with psychiatry teachers. So that was also one of my early experience of conducting this this session. And after that, I could present this poster at National CMA of Psychiatry Education and Faculty Training in January 2022. So literally, I could say that this was steps for my future research journey. So I gained much more confidence in writing the protocols, writing the research papers. And after that, I could publish research paper in PubMed Index Journal on my own. And I got selection and completed another research training program, and also received another research grant. Currently, I'm doing another collaborative research project. So I'll strongly recommend this research program to all those psychiatry teachers who are interested in research. You will get guidance at all stages of your work, and you'll be able to finish your work on time. And this will help to further improve your research skills, and will also help to create more interest in teaching and improve your teaching skills also. So I'm very thankful for being part of this program, and it was really useful for me, and it really helped me to gain much more confidence, and improved me well. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nimmy. Thank you for that crisp and good presentation. We would like to move on to Dr. Nimmy's mentor, Professor Vikas Menon. Once Sir speaks about his experience, and then we can field some questions about the study. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, there you are. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, congratulations to the group for having these kind of sessions where we have a platform to share the challenges and the various learning experiences from this, because I think this kind of sessions are important, because it's very difficult to do research in medical education, as Dr. Ravi rightly said in this introduction, because this is not a very attractive area, and probably you require extra motivation to do research in these areas, because as he rightly said, this kind of research is not much incentivized. So I think these kind of platforms are excellent to really inculcate more interest in this area and to develop, indigenous evidence base from where we can further innovate or further, try our own techniques. But it provides some kind of guidance as to what kind of interventions may work or does not work, and also lessons for the future. So just like in any other study from this, when we were planning this study also, I think we went through several rounds of discussion. I distinctly remember that Dr. Nimmy had this idea about using movies to increase learner interest towards psychiatry. She's very passionate about the fact that, something has to be done to increase learner interest and attitude towards psychiatry. So we went, so there was some guidance regarding this topic in literature. That is from where, we also got a base for the sample size calculation. But then one of the other challenges that we wanted to look at what design could be used to implement or study the effectiveness of teaching learning methods. That's really a challenge that all of us need to think about. What are the effective methods that we can use, or how to design an effective, study design to assess the effectiveness of teaching learning methods. Of course, there are randomized controlled trials, but there are numerous challenges to conducting randomized controlled trials in medical college contexts. So nevertheless, we went ahead with a randomized controlled design. Perhaps you can say that we were quite ambitious, but it was an attempt to know from firsthand what are the challenges involved in conducting these in medical college settings, because there is a paucity of such study designs in our setting particularly. Some literature is there from other settings. So from that perspective, I think, we are all wiser for the experience. As she rightly presented, our study was a negative study. It was a negative study, but nonetheless, I think so. There were some learning experiences for us, and that's what we would like to discuss in the next few minutes, if the moderator allows us to. So those are my initial thoughts on this topic, Dr. Ravi.
Thank you so much, sir. For the questions in the chat, we have, I think, Dr. Prasad asking, what were the confounders that were looked at before we reached the conclusion?
So shall I just say a few words before I give it to Dr. Nimmy?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So whatever she has presented in table 1, in all the demographic factors, those are basically the factors that we look at when we want to compare between the intervention and the control group. And generally, if the randomization process is done correctly, then the table 1 in every RCT is a good indicator of whether whatever confounders you have started off with or you had in mind are equally distributed between both the groups, because that is the power of randomization, that all the known, unknown, and all the known and unknown confounders get equally distributed. That's also one of the reasons why randomized controlled trials are highest on the evidence-based hierarchy, because it's a very powerful design to distribute all the confounders between groups. So the only confounders probably what we have assessed are mentioned in table 1. Over to you, Dr. Nimmy, for adding more on this.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And if there are more questions in the chat box, should I answer those questions?
Sure, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Dr. Prasad, hope that answers your question. Please go ahead, Dr. Nimmy.
Okay. So there were question about my sample size. Okay, so the sample size calculation, we have taken that from the previous paper, and we have calculated the minimum sample size, and it was found to be 32. And then so we could, because we, for the practical purposes, we were including those students who are undergoing psychiatric clinical posting. So that's why we included that sample size, because we that time that was a maximum number of students who are undergoing psychiatric clinical posting. And then
how was contamination between the subjects avoided?
Avoided, yes. Initially, so that was the same batch of students. They but they were coming to the psychiatric posting for in a sequential manner. So initially we have conducted I was the person who conducted the intervention completely for the intervention group, and the control group also received the other that also was taken by me. And then for the practical purposes, the control group was completed the clinical posting prior, and then the intervention group completed the study part. So that was one thing. And
yes, you answered the last one. Did the same faculty do both interventions to avoid bias?
Yes, I have done. Then
Hope that answers your query, ma'am. Dr. Christina George, do you have any follow-up questions to this? I think the question is very relevant because I think the study was also trying to measure the effect of the in-group. I think you used some variable regarding the effect that the in-group was having in between themselves, wasn't it, ma'am?
Yeah, there was within group improvement, but when compared with both the groups, there was no significant improvement. But there was significant improvement in the within group improvement was there.
So I think what was one of the findings that just I wanted to add before I hand it over to Dr. Ravi. So what she noticed was there was within group improvement in the intervention group, but not in the control group. But usually in a randomized control trial, between group effect is more important than the within group difference. If only because you expect both groups to improve a little bit, within group, because they are part of a study and some non-specific effects will be there. So you expect both groups to have within group improvement. However, that was more in the intervention group, but between group was not significantly different either at the baseline or at the endpoint. That's all.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, I feel for these sort of, I will call this it's like when you do interventions in the community or within a classroom. I'm glad you did the intervention part later, because one of the huge problems in all social interventions for a group is contamination. And it can happen at all sorts of levels, all sorts of levels where, so I'm glad one was done after the other. Now, sorry to go back to a bit of nitty-gritty. When you say, I'm sure since Dr. Vikas was involved, the sample size must have been, shall we say, done well. But, when you say it is done based on a previous study, you see, I think, did you check for whether this study was actually powered to check for the effect of this particular kind of intervention? Because you have an add-on teaching technique, right? You have TAU, as usual, and then you have an add-on. So was your reference study where you use the sample size, are you confident that this sample was sufficient to check for the effect of this kind of add-on intervention?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, we had calculated that effect size of that study. So we have done that before starting.
Okay. All right then. Thank you. Now, this is nothing to do with research.
Thank you.
Just a bias I have. I feel those students are very interested in media and movies, and it definitely generates interest. Sometimes, unfortunately, I feel sometimes it works the other way, where, the attitude and shall we say the actual, how do I put it? What we may want them to learn from these movie clips may not be what they take home. Am I making sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, it makes them very excited, and they identify with the movies, and they take, it's like you show a patient and you tell 10 things in which they have improved, but the 11th thing they didn't improve in, that may be what they take home. Did you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so sometimes though I feel using movies, and we do it, at least I do it all the time in AdCom and all that, and I sort of avoid doing it in psychiatry, in fact. For some reason, because I'm not sure in that 3 hours what could be the sort of messages or some other YouTube videos I may access, where maybe not exactly what we want is being, shall we say, imbibed by the students. But this is just my bias. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do use it for AdCom. It's not movies, but some clips and all that. Thank you.
Okay, madam, I think when we discuss and we have that guidance and the students were freely interacting, so I think we could clarify all their doubts and about what all things they need to learn, and so that was I was able to guide them. So that
Yes,
was.
I'm sure the interventions were sufficiently structured. Like I said, this is just an opinion, and it is not, it's not
Yes,
an evidence-based opinion or anything. Okay, I'm sure your sessions were well structured.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that feedback and suggestions. Um, I think the involvement of media definitely makes it more complicated as well as much needed, because largely when you look at perception, and we know that the society is influenced by media, and you develop certain perceptions, and this negative perception, what we call stigma, is perhaps one of the key things that the study aims to address in medical students. So I found it very interesting that because it is it's a local medical college, and you had a lot of reservation for minority students as well. So most of them were from
Dr. Ravi has frozen, I think.
There is some connection issues.
Okay, so while Dr. Ravi comes in, I wanted to also just add to what Dr. Christina has mentioned here. I think that's an important point that, many of the time when we do use some of these videos and movies and movie clips and all during it, most of our sessions to break the monotony, but to make sure that the message is delivered properly from all these, when we mix teaching learning methods together, a debriefing is very important. Probably that's one of the ways in which we can make sure that they have taken the same take-home messages as we wanted them to. So from that perspective, Dr. Nimmy, maybe sometime after the questions are over, maybe you might want to add your experiences on how that aspect was, how that challenge, how you felt that challenge and how it was probably addressed, or how it could be addressed in future. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, before you proceed with sir's suggestion, what was it in your experience? Did you find that usually when we read this Western text about stigma, did you find the stigma that our medical students perceived was different, or were there any things that were not addressed by our current literature? Or was it any stigma or any myths that the movies or the media perpetuated that it is unintendedly? Any experiences that you could share with us that cannot be reflected in the paper?
Yes, of course, Ravi. So I think during this session, so we had extra time for this discussion and the free discussion with the students. Then there were so many questions they had, and they had all there was significant stigma in the all part about the illnesses and about the treatment modalities also, about, because in the previous movies and all the ECTs are shown as very stigmatizing manner. So there was significant stigma associated with all those things. So I think usually when I take classes, usual clinical hours, we have time bound. We have to finish that portions, and after this interventions, I felt that there should be some time for this free discussion, free kind of to clarify all their myths and their queries. And so there were actually a significant number of misconceptions about our treatment modalities, and also about the illnesses, everything. So in that discussion part, I could clarify much of that, but I think there is need for including in further teaching also.
Any strong difference from what is reflected in the Western literature to what you had observed during the conducting of this study?
Okay, so that actually
you were mentioning about
sure.
ECT. I think that is one thing, because
yes.
I think they animate the procedure a lot.
Yes. About the ECT, yes, there was significant discount, and about the newer modalities and all, and especially in our medical colleges, it's a new medical college, and we don't have the newer brain stimulation techniques and all those things. So that was about all those things, and the students are completely unaware of all the career advancement, what all improvements are, or innovative techniques or treatment methodologies are coming in psychiatry and all those. So that also I could guide them, and so that was.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Nimmy.
So how do you want to take this forward, Dr. Ravi? Shall I ask, shall I just tell some few more important learning points from this, maybe to Dr. Nimmy, and maybe the whole group can then reflect on it? Will that be okay?
That would be great, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so first of all, thank you to everybody for the really thought-provoking questions. But I think, there are many learning points here. So let me just go back to Dr. Nimmy and ask her, like, what were the challenges that you encountered when doing this online customized psychiatry learning module? And I understand that some of this, this module, the teaching learning techniques in this module was necessitated as a result of the pandemic and as a result of the unique situations that we were facing when designing the study. So what were your experiences of doing this online teaching learning? I'm also asking this question because online teaching learning has kind of outlasted the pandemic itself. Although we initially started off, as it was more of a necessity rather than an innovation during the COVID pandemic. That is the only way we could do it. But now it is kind of, become the norm in many centers. So we all know that, there are so many challenges in online teaching learning compared to face-to-face teaching. So just want to get your perspectives after having done the study on what were the unique challenges that you faced, and what message you would give to probably people who want to do similar studies in future.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So initially in our study also we had planned an offline sessions, but because of this pandemic situation, we were forced to do that in online session. So there was one or two challenges I want to say. So whether while we were planning about this study, so whether I was confused whether the students will be ready to participate, or whether they will be interested in doing, and they want to participate in the study because they want to attend their normal clinical postings and the theory classes, and along with that they have to attend this additional classes. So I was confused whether they were interested in doing this study. So that was the reason we took that students who are undergoing clinical postings, because they will be more interested, because they are already undergoing clinical posting, they will be more interested in the study. And along with that, with the online sessions, and I think that it was more easy for the students to because after the class hours, after the theory class hours, and it was more feasible for them, and it was more easy for them to attend all those sessions. From the feedback, it was from we have taken feedback from the students. I think only one of the student reported that that the offline sessions would have been much better than the online sessions. That was due to the internet connection issues and all. So apart from that, all the students reported that it was help them to generate interest in them, and it was more easy for them to attend all the sessions and all. So so these were a few challenges, and then apart from that, and then the module making, so that was itself a challenge for me. So I've taken all the previous literature, and then we have included all the sessions which have been, because we were doing that online session, we have included all the sessions which are feasible in the online. So we haven't included the role plays and all, because that will not be able to do that in the online session. So that was some of the issues. So we have selected all those sessions which can be done in online classes.
That is lovely, Dr. Nimmy.
Yeah. Thank you. I think over to you, Dr. Ravi. I think there are a lot of other wonderful, participants here who also would like to pitch in.
Thank you, sir. I think this is one of the best things I found was how the paper mentions a list of Malayalam movies that could be watched to cover comprehensively the entire spectrum of psychiatric illnesses. And it is a very interesting point where the study appears in the middle of a pandemic with the emerging online training and classes, along with trying to engage students who were getting bored of online classes with the media and movies, at the same time addressing various aspects of stigma and acceptance of psychiatry. I think in many ways that the paper can't express in words, this study is a unique study that Must Enrich will definitely be proud of.
Yeah, and I think we must congratulate Dr. Nimmy, for persisting with the study despite all the challenges that she faced in an upcoming medical college. And actually, when you get down to planning and actually planning a study for these kind of topics, and designing and implementing it, only you come to know what are the ground level challenges. That's also why I wanted her to reflect on it. But I think Dr. Nimmy has done a wonderful job.
Thank you, sir. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, actually the first idea was introduced by Dr. Kishore only, and he only gave the first. Initially, he introduced this idea of student-centered, that is customized psychiatry teaching. So that word, actually, he only introduced that word, and then we had so many ideas initially. So finally, we have come to this module and all. And so before that, we have planned that in multiple times. We were first thinking about choosing that only a particular group of students who are interested in one subject, or maybe who has special interest. Only we'll select 2 groups who have interest in medical specialties, like that. So we had planned that in multiple times, and then finally we have made this because it should be feasible, and we should be able to conduct that, and during this pandemic situation. Then after changing multiple times the protocol and this teaching module also, we finally came to this kind of teaching module and conducted this study. So there was initially I think I have changed this protocol and this module, I don't know, the number of times maybe. So finally, so I think Vikas sir, he was there, and he guided me thoroughly. So that was the reason I could do that study very well, and I could finish that study time bound. And I'm very thankful to Vikas sir.
Thank you, Vikas sir. And definitely Kishore sir for being a visionary and looking into these aspects of psychiatric education. If since there are no further questions in the chat box, and with the permission of the resource persons, I would like to welcome Dr. Mohan Isaac. Sir, it's always a pleasure to have you with us. Your constant guidance and support mean a lot to us. Uh, so we would like to ask you to speak a few words.
Thank you very much, Raviteja. Part of the problem is that when you ask me to speak a few words, I'll speak much more than few words. Anyway, with that danger, I would, of course, say a few things. I want to say three things mainly. The first thing is that this is a new form of the Sunday special with 60 minutes with psychiatric teachers. I have attended most of them last year, and of course, I missed the last one. It had a certain format, and now, as Ravi initially mentioned, this will, for the next several sessions, in the several months, take a new form, because people who were awardees of the Must Enrich grant, completed research, maybe in the process of publishing or have published, are going to present their presentation and their research, and then we have a discussion. So I'm delighted that Nimmy presented her work, and we have had a fairly good discussion on that. I'm not going into the, the methodology, the findings, etc. There are many things. Christina has raised some points. We have had some discussion, but I just want to say that the Must Enrich grant itself, for people who are not fully aware of, because there are many members who are not part of the ITOP, came up primarily because when this 2-3 years ago, when the ITOP started the scholarship program, we had absolutely no idea how many people will apply. And then, of course, there were only 4 scholarship awards available. And the number of applicants were much more than that. And most of them, in fact, the selection committee had big problems selecting the 4 people. They, of course, deliberated, and decided, no, 4 people should be selected, but there are many other people who should also be, in a way, engaged and rewarded. So then, of course, Kishore managed to find some grant money, etc., and not a big grant, but small grants. A kind of a small grant program was created, and many people were offered the small grants to do research. So they were all people who expected to get the scholarship program. The scholarship program went on. Now I think it is in its 3rd edition. But the Must Enrich grant went on, and Nimmy, as one of the first presenters, is somebody who has not only completed a good project, but also got it published. Now, looking back, what has this done to teachers? In fact, Raviteja mentioned in the beginning that there are 100,000 medical students in the country as of now. And I don't know, the psychiatric postgraduates, maybe it is about 1,000, maybe 800, I don't know, you will have the numbers. And then, of course, that gives us this important, responsibility. How are we training our psychiatry? This 100,000 students who are all going through medical curriculum. Of course, we have all the guidelines, the medical commission's guidelines. But as psychiatrists, with interest in mental health, how are we getting these people to get interested in psychiatry? None of them, of course, a small number only will become psychiatrists. In fact, we don't want all of them to become psychiatrists. They want to be in various branches, general practice, etc. But how can they take mental health? And that's one of the reasons why this whole ITOP program on, investing on teachers, etc., is important. So I think this has been worthwhile, because Nimmy said, and I noted 3 or 4 things. She said she has gained immensely from it. So how do these young psychiatry teachers, who are all going to be very, very effective teachers in future, they are already very effective teachers. One, from this Must Enrich grant program, you learn how to guide your students in their research, because many of you would also be working in postgraduate training centers. You will be MD thesis guides. Thesis, as far as I understand, is still a mandatory requirement for the MD program, etc. So she said how Vikas guided, how she would get a response immediately. In fact, he has been a role model for guide. So the first thing is you learn how to guide your students in research. The second thing is, again, although we all learn and talk about it, etc., we attend journal clubs, but when it comes to actually writing a paper and publishing it, we don't have much training. So this, again, I'm only taking what Nimmy said, has given her a lot of experience in how to write a paper, how to target a journal, how to write the comments, referees' comments, etc., and how to ultimately get it in print. Now, this is only the beginning. I'm sure Nimmy will publish many, many more. As she rightly said, she has already got grant number 2, grant number 3, etc., etc. She is on the long road to doing more and more research and publishing. And the third point, I think, as part of all these things, Nimmy also said that she got an opportunity to conduct and moderate a similar Sunday special program. Again, we don't learn about how to chair a meeting, how to conduct, how to moderate a group, whether it's 2,000 people, 200 people, or 25 people. It is still a task that you have to learn. So I think this has been very good. The Must Enrich Grant program, as well as the Sunday special, where you get a chance to present, is very important. I'm looking forward to future programs, which I hope Ravi will moderate, and many other people who have completed either in the process of writing up and publishing or published already will come up in future Sundays. Now, the two other points I want to mention are peripheral. I'm also somebody who is very much interested in movies and how movies depict not necessarily all mentally ill people. I watch a lot of movies, and I'll tell you my third point is about that. Because this is a Sunday special with the psychiatry teacher, so I must tell you what I'm busy with today. Now, movies, I looked at the long list. I may have missed out because it was in the, I noted down, you mentioned about Kaliyatam, Hey Jude, Tanmatra, Spirit for Alcohol Problem, But one of the movies that I have watched and I have talked about chronic severe mental illness, people's expectation, the role of genetics, predict or anticipate that the generation somebody will be unwell, etc., is a movie called Taniyavartanam. I don't know whether it was there in the Nimmy's list. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. This is too old, and Hey Jude and all these are new movies.
It's not there, sir. It's not.
Anyway,
not there.
not there.
No.
But I thought that is, yeah. I also accept all the points which Christina mentioned. And I think it is a teacher's responsibility if he uses a movie to teach some points to your medical students about mental health. It is your job also to see that they get the right message and not the 11th unwanted message. I think you have to take responsibility. And this is a passion which many, many other people, share. In fact, Dinesh is not an ordinary psychiatrist. He was the past president of the, so besides being my good friend, past president of the Royal College of Psychiatrists, first Indian to become the president of Royal College of Psychiatrists, first Indian to become the WPA president, etc. His famous book is Mad Tales from Bollywood or something like that. He talks about, he is very passionate, and Hindi movies, etc. is, a lot of, it need not be always about a typical syndrome, but even showing the personalities and the characters. If there are good directors, I think there are lots of things to learn. So that is something which I personally enjoy. And one of the things I regularly use here in my teaching, not only undergraduates, even in my regular, I work as a consultant for the assertive community treatment team. And I have read Sylvia Nasser's, biography of John Nash. I have that book. It's a fat book. I have read it several times because I know it's a fairly accurate kind of, because John Nash himself has talked about it. And of course, the movie Beautiful Mind for a number of things. For recovery, is recovery possible? John Nash is supposed to have recovered without taking medication. How was he a very bad patient, never taking medication? Revolving door, how at a certain phase in life he was in and out of the hospital, etc., etc. How intelligent people can hide the symptomatology and fool psychiatrists. Number of things can be learned. And also how to rehabilitate persons with chronic psychotic disorders. How John Nash was allowed by his good friend with whom he competed, who became the chair of the department and allowed. John said, I might be all this, I will not disturb anybody. Please allow me to wander around in the university campus. And that is how his recovery was. Anyway, there are lots of things for people who watch movies and read about them and watch it carefully. Lots of things can be used. Now, my last thing is, this is called Sunday Special with 60 minutes with psychiatry teachers. Since the topic is about movies, I am eagerly waiting for this week. I don't know whether I'll get the time to go and see or not. This week, I don't know whether it's occurring in India, but in elsewhere in the world, as far as movies are concerned, this week it is said that it is Barbie meets Bomb. I don't know if any of you know why this is. Barbie, of course, is the very famous Barbie doll, which the Mattel company made millions. I'm sure even in people who don't know, even in India, remote places, there will be Barbie doll. That is its brand value and how it has gone on. Now, Barbie is a movie which is going to be released on this Thursday. Maybe it is released in the United States already, but in Australia, it's going to be released. I don't know whether it is released already or it's going to be coming, but it's a fantasy comedy. But there are messages about women's lib and how many things. I mean, we can critically look at it. I've only watched its trailer, but not the full movie. But why Barbie meets the bomb? And that is the second part which I want to tell you, which I'm eagerly looking forward to. And Barbie, I may or may not go and see in the theater, but this second one about the bomb, this is a movie which is being made by Christopher Nolan, who is a very famous director. Many of you may have seen his old movies. He made the famous Second World War movie, Dunkirk. It was, he's a very serious maker of movies. His movie, it's a biopic called Oppenheimer. You know that Robert Oppenheimer is the one who created the atom bomb, which of course, created a lot of problem, which of course helped in ending the Second World War. This is a biopic on Robert Oppenheimer's life. Christopher Nolan got so obsessed about what kind of a man is this. He was a theoretical physicist. And how did he create this bomb which destroyed people? And I have watched the trailer. It is worth, and I would urge, although I have not seen the movie, it would be worth watching, going by Christopher Nolan's movies. I would end here. Thank you very much. This is why I told you, Ravi, that if you ask me to speak few words, I will not be speaking few words, but I would speak whatever I want to. Thank you very much. Back to you.
It's always an absolute pleasure to hear to you, sir. We are quite fortunate to have you and encourage us all the time. We'll definitely keep, and sir, we are quite excited about the movie as well now, thanks to you. We have a lot of people to thank for the success of this program. Dr. Kishore, Dr. Kiran, sir, for your neatly designed flyers, Dr. Ajay, Dr. Vinay, Dr. Sujit Kar, Dr. Dhirendra, Dr. Pooja Shabdal for the coordination. Once again, thank you so much, the resource persons, Dr. Nimmy and Professor Vikas Menon for joining us. If Dr. Kishore has anything else to add, I leave it to him. Otherwise, we can end the program on time.
May I just put in a word?
Please, ma'am, please.
This is about something Dr. Kishore has posted in the group, and Dr. Vikas Menon and particularly Dr. Mohan Isaac who have been more involved in this than me. This is the IPS UG subcommittee over the years, and Dr. M.V. Ashok, we have put together a competency-based medical education manual. I think Dr. Kishore has also been involved a lot in it. So this manual has been posted on the IPS website for the next 1 month to obtain feedback from the IPS members. This is a formality before possible passing it through the EC and publication by IPS. This is a rather traditional format with SLOs and lesson plans and assessment strategies. So Teachers Forum was also a place where we would require feedback before proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We will definitely keep that on our mind and have this on the live on YouTube as well. Thank you all. Thank you for spending your time with us on Sunday. And the next session, the presenter will be Dr. Sharmishta Deshpande. And see you in the next episode of the series. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohan Isaac, sir. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Ravi, for moderating it.
Thank you so much.
To everyone,
you so
have a
much.
nice Sunday, whatever left of it.